Now, I could pretend that the story in this show makes a little sense, but, even the series itself just kind of forgets what it's about right after the first episode, and you really get no answers, so just roll with it. All you need to know is the main character was attacked with a butcher knife by her mother when she was a child, and the people who took her away had a symbol for a school filled with the most undesirable troublemakers that you could possibly think of. In the past, Blackbird Academy was a prestigious school for students with bright futures, but now parents just throw their lazy kids in there with the promise that they will be reformed for a huge enrollment fee. Unsurprisingly, every single character is some kind of delinquent, so when Yumi makes her entrance on a helicopter, well, they let her in because she's probably loaded. Being a grade A student is usually a good thing at a school, but at this place it gets you attacked by every single person in class. Lucky for her, that butcher knife scar on her chest just kind of makes people back off, but they're kind of too busy messing with Yuta to pay any attention to her anyway. He's the second central character of the show who gets beaten up in a bunch of the stories, and he really doesn't deserve it either. He's pretty much the only person there trying to actually learn anything. Then we have the people at the head of the school. The principal is a former Yakuza running the place into the ground, and once a year, he has a school assembly just so he can remind the students how bad they messed up in life. The gym teacher isn't much better. The sound of his kendo stick is so loud you can barely understand him, and I'm pretty sure he's just a student that got held back so many times that he never graduated. It's the kind of place where you don't know how bad you've messed up until they throw you behind bars. Not because you would end up in prison if your grades don't improve, but because they have a jail built right into the school. Now, it doesn't take an undercover detective with a yo-yo to figure out that things are not as they seem. So when Yumi sneaks in at night looking for some answers as to why this place is so messed up, she bumps into two other girls who are doing the exact same thing. Together, they form the Sailor Suit Rebel Alliance. Students by day, vigilantes by night. The idea is they're so decked out in makeup that nobody can tell who they really are. Just like all the other shows in this genre, every girl has a different household object to fight with. Ruri uses steel pencils as throwing darts that always magically hit people's hands. Yumi has gloves for punching forgiveness and understanding into people's faces, and Kei has my favorite weapon of all, a scarf. Not your typical, average, everyday scarf, one that doubles as a chain to tie people up. Sometimes it's short, sometimes it's 10 feet long, they really didn't care. It changes from scene to scene, so they get pretty creative with it. Most episodes are centered around these teachers and all the horrible things that they do, but one of them isn't even about the school, it's about the janitor that works there. They trick him into delivering a package full of money, and when it gets stolen, he's so grief-stricken with what happened that he offs himself in order to maintain a little bit of dignity. The rest of that episode is a ghost story about how the spirit of the school janitor is haunting people, so that gives you just a tiny idea of what this show is like. Another good one is about a beautiful English teacher that substitutes one day. All the students are trying to impress her, so you get a bunch of scenes where they're cleaning the school trying to get on her good side. Really funny stuff. But when she's not teaching class, she's trying to figure out who the real Sailor Suit Hangyaku Doumei are, and I think she was just hired by the principal to do all this or something. Honestly, it doesn't really matter why she's there, but for some crazy reason, they fight her in the middle of an empty swimming pool, and they don't even pretend any of this is normal. She just twirls around like a magical girl, and then all of a sudden she's got a costume on. It's amazing. They wrap it up by showing the fallout of the fight, and I'm pretty sure the girls packed her into a shipping crate, thinking that they could mail her back to America or something. It's kind of a theme with this show, but episode 4 has another completely different evil English teacher as the main villain. And the thing about this guy, besides his gigantic afro, is he's blind. So you would think that they would go easy on him, but as soon as class starts, they throw knives at him, which he immediately knocks out of the air with his skull-shaped walking stick. Again, the kids at this school are probably here for a reason. So they introduce this guy, and you know something's up. But nothing really strange happens until later on. Once the school day ends, people start getting mysterious phone calls in the middle of the night. And the second that people respond, they immediately attack their parents. It turns out that this guy has mind control poetry powers and is instantly turning people into violent criminals when he calls. So now you've got the girls having no idea what's going on, people are getting attacked on the news, things are nuts. But Yuta gets a phone call in some broken English, and, well, they kind of just put two and two together. He tells them that he wore headphones in class on his 1980s Walkman, which made him completely immune to the hypnosis poetry. But when the girls call the meeting off, he gets attacked in person in the street instead. Lucky for him, he snaps right out of it right before that happens, but the show swaps to a fight in the middle of the woods, set to organ music and J-pop, and it turns out he was never blind in the first place. Shocker, I know, big surprise. Now, most of you probably have a pretty good idea of what I'm talking about by now, but for clarity's sake, this is what people like to call a J-drama. They're the staple of Japanese television, and most of the time they're pretty standard. With this show though, they change things up a little. Let me try and be a little bit more specific. Since this was more of a regular drama, they couldn't exactly have a monster of the week like it was Kamen Rider or something. So instead, they had a celebrity be the big evil bad guy in about half of the stories. This leads to some hilarious episodes with fights that make absolutely no sense. None at all. One of them is about Yakuza loan sharks trying to squeeze money out of the students. And that's not all that crazy, right? They don't have any powers, they don't have any weapons, they're just basically businessmen roughing people up. But when it comes to the fight at the end, the main bad guy suddenly turns into a football player with a knife on his head. Then, an entire team of other football players suddenly pops out of nowhere, and it's just never explained. They set none of this up. It's like normal insanity. I thought I might have been losing it, so I went and looked up who this guy was, and suddenly the football players just made a tiny bit more sense.
I'm not supposed to be around children, but I may live next door to you.
The TV show Takeshi's Castle aired 5 months later, so if you've seen Most Extreme Elimination Challenge, I probably have your attention.
Right you are, Ken. Good stuff.
Even the people who sing the theme song to the show got in on the action. One of them shows up as a villain for some reason, and they have wind powers, just basically out of nowhere. One thing that I found out that was pretty interesting to me anyway is these guys are the Japanese musical group A-Jari, who show up and do the theme song for another series that you may have heard of called Shoujo Commando Izumi, where a girl with a rocket launcher fights, whatever, I've talked about that show enough. The point being is these shows are directly linked to one another, and if that weren't enough, even the stunt team that worked on one TV series ended up switching to the other. Oh, and in one episode, they fought Ultraman. But why all the crazy fighting, right? Aren't dramas supposed to be, dramas? To give a little bit more historical context, Sailor Suit's Rebel Alliance was made to compete directly with Sukeban Deka Season 3, which was being shown on a competing channel at the same time. This rivalry between the two shows was such a big deal that they advertised it like a prime-time wrestling match. Who would win? The Sailor Suit's Rebel Alliance and their endless fight against evil teachers, or Sukeban Deka Season 3, with their over-the-top ninja magic. So here's some cool info. You ever wonder what video games were for sale when they were making this thing? No? Well, too bad, I'm gonna talk about it anyway. In episode 8, they have an arcade in the background, and you can just kind of sort of make out what video games they were playing at the time. The first video game is Hang On, and the second one is Enduro Racer. I'm not sure what this third one is, but I'm guessing the entire comment section is now furiously going over every screenshot on the internet to figure it out, so I look forward to finding out whatever this thing is. They also have these kids that are dressed up like Kuwabara wannabes trying to act cool later in the show, and one of the first things that they take from a store is the Fist of the North Star game for the Sega Mark III. Now you can really only tell from the corner of the box, but yep, that's Hokuto no Ken alright. Sukeban shows are something that I treasure, but that's just what you call those girls who hide baseball bats under their skirts. The more accurate term would be sailor-suited, idol-driven high school tokusatsu action dramas. Or, just call them Sukeban shows. Japan theorized that if these shows had continued, then eventually there would be a high school girl from outer space. One that breathes fire, has all the powers of Ultraman, and fights people with a shoulder-mounted missile launcher. A few years later, we did get Shoujo Commando Izumi, so they probably weren't all that far off. Once again, I'd like to thank Tokugami for helping me make this video. Neither of us thought this would take half a year of research to put together, but we're both out of our minds, so everything kinda worked out fine in the end. As for me, there's still a few more of these shows that I'd like to cover, like that one about the pro golfer who beats people with golf clubs, and obviously I gotta do reviews on each of those Sukeban Deka shows, but then that's it! I'm definitely not doing future videos on Sailor Suit and Machine Gun, Sukeban Chainsaw, or any of the other delinquent schoolgirl shows. But hey, if this video gets enough likes, it'll start getting pushed out to people who don't even know what I'm talking about, which would be pretty funny. So if you want the chaos and confusion to continue, maybe leave a comment, because that would be pretty funny. Thank you very much for watching this video all the way to the end. Have a wonderful day.